Hi, Mark Cukro.
Adrian Knight.
So this weekend we had an amazing testing event. We tested 99 people. 35 of those were adults and 32 of those adults were blue belts. And I want to talk to you about the next steps in a blue belt. So you're a purple belt, you've been for a few years. So what was it like getting your blue belt, and then what did you think a few months later about what you needed to learn?
Well, it's funny because you always grow into a belt. Like
Yeah.
you say, as you go through the stages of belt, you go through white to black belt in that belt.
In the belt itself.
Yeah, so like when you first get a blue belt, you're a fresh blue belt, you're a white belt blue belt.
Mm-hmm.
And as you make your way through the ranks in a blue belt, it's really good to see your progression. Like at 1 year, year and a half, 2 years, whenever you get your blue belt, and 3, 4, 5 years later after that, it's good to see how much you've grown as a jiu-jitsu player and a person in general.
It's interesting too, I get this question a lot. So last year in our region, I promoted 49 blue belts. Now this year is January 2020, and we've already promoted over 30 blue belts. And the next class, what do I need to work on next? And that's a common question, and you should have an answer. So I'd like to get your insight, but I'm going to share a little bit of mine as well too. Once you get your blue belt, let me just say this: you still have a lot to learn on the white to blue belt curriculum. I've been a black belt for 5 years, going on 6, and I'm still learning the white to blue curriculum, the most basic fundamentals, because you have a much different level of observation when you're a blue belt, a purple belt, a brown belt, a black belt for a few years. And you can look at the same basic fundamental techniques 20 years later and go, oh my goodness, I never knew that little detail, I didn't think of it that way, and all of a sudden your whole game changes. Now, when you got your blue belt, you had it for like a day, right? So tell me about what you felt like when you got it, and then maybe like a year later what you thought of it.
Yep. Partly I felt like I didn't deserve it. I know being in the position I am now, and seeing that you've promoted all these people of the year, you don't give out belts that they don't earn, right?
Right.
And so I know I've earned it once I got it, but still a small part of you feels like you haven't earned it and you need to grow into it. And then a year later, it's nothing new. You look down, it's the same belt you've had on for a year. It's that initial shock's gone, and you're starting to work towards that first stripe. So it's different mentally going into it a year later and then feeling a lot more comfortable, like you've earned it. You're into the belt now.
I get that a lot. Like, I don't feel like I earned my belt. Let me say this: if you have a good instructor and they give you a belt, you earn that belt based on their criteria. So I want you to stop with the I feel like I don't deserve it kind of approach, because what it really does is it communicates to your instructor that you really may not trust their judgment. And really, you're not trying to do that. We know that. But if your instructor, coach, professor has been training for years, 10, 15, 20 years, even longer, and they say, look, I've been doing this a long time, you deserve this blue belt, you tested for it, here it is, you deserve that blue belt, whether you feel like it or not. And I think that goes to what you said is, okay, I got a blue belt, I've had it for a day. I don't really feel like a blue belt yet, right? And that's where the newness kind of wears off. And then you settle into your belt. Now, did the same thing happen when you get to purple belt?
Absolutely, but I think to a greater degree.
A greater degree.
Yeah, so when I look down, it's a funny feeling, a funny sight, and then it's just the belt you wear.
You're kind of surprised to see that belt around your waist, and then you can feel like the sense of obligation, like, okay, now I have to represent an entirely new level. And it's true, you do. So what do you have to work on in order to represent that different level? And I think immediately, number one, still keep learning the fundamentals. You should learn those forever. Don't ever get bored with the fundamentals. Next, when you're moving from a blue belt, you become less static, and you're more mobile and agile and fluid in your movement. And you should really work on your grips, like specifically why you grab here, there, this way, that way. The next thing would be getting really good at sweeps. And you should be very difficult to hold down at this point in your blue belt journey towards purple belt. And then you should start really working on connecting the submissions into 3, 4, 5 submission chains, but not just knowing what to do, but doing them fluidly and being able to go from one to the other in execution. So when you get your blue belt, don't think you stop learning blue belt material. I can't stress that enough. You need to continue learning all of the fundamentals. What advice would you give, since you had a purple belt for a few years now? What would you say to someone that's just got a blue belt and what they need to work on?
Well, keep showing up is the first thing.
Keep showing up.
Right? You don't want that blue belt-itis. Then after that, listen to your instructor. Don't be afraid to ask him questions.
Yeah.
What you need to do. I know a lot of people don't like asking for advice.
Sure.
They feel scared. They don't want to look at, hey, I just got a blue belt. Maybe I shouldn't ask this question. Maybe that's a white belt question, quote unquote. But don't be afraid to ask questions, because your journey is different than someone else's. And I'm sure if you have that question, more people in the class have that same question. So that study the techniques, go and train other places. Test yourself against other people, right, who aren't in your association, who are in your association, and then you'll get a greater sense of where you belong as a blue belt and what you need to work on with that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, if you have a confident, comfortable instructor and they know what they're doing, they should encourage you to train with other people, whether it's gi, no gi, different styles, different teams, whatever. But take all that information, put it in, bring it back to your team and put it to your benefit. But when you get a blue belt, the learning of that beginning material is not over. It's far from over. It's just begun, believe me. And so I think if you start working on those, but I can tell you too, when you ask your instructor, him or her, can I ask you a question about this? I know I've been doing this Americana or this armbar for 1, 2, 3, 4 years. What do you think I need to work on next? Your coach should tell you. A good coach will tell you exactly what you need to work on. But let me say this too, you need to be coachable and you need to be able to take that advice and put it to work on the mat. So listen to your coach without defending and then ask them why. Can you tell me why this is a good idea and when it's a good idea? And you'll get a lot of insight that you may not have been prepared to receive 6 months ago when you had 3 stripes on your white belt or 4 and you're working towards your blue. So if you could take that advice back to your academy, ask your instructor, work on moving the smoothness, fluidity of transitions, your grips. Why do you grab the collar this way, the sleeve this way? This way. When do you grab here? When do you grab here? All of the grips to shut down a person's movement and to give you an advantage, and then fluidly moving through all of those into sweeps. Because now that you've got a blue belt, you should be pretty good at moving around and defending yourself. But now you have to be really good at reversing bad positions. And when you get a sweep, it shouldn't take much effort. When you hit that sweet spot, it should feel like you almost didn't have to try. And if you get good at those things, I can guarantee your teammates are going to notice, you'll notice in your jiu-jitsu. So if you have any questions, let us know. We'd be glad to share more insights or personal opinions on things. But I'm Mark Cukro. Thanks for watching. Take good care and share this with a friend that you think needs to hear it. We'll see you soon.